So, good morning, everyone. It's 5 minutes past 11. People are still joining. So, but before we do start the webinar, I think it would be good to do some housekeeping, maybe introduce iProduce to the people who are here in case they don't know about iProduce. My name is Aisha Waziri Umar, and I'm the founder of iProduce, a founder of Inara Foundation. Inara Foundation are the creators of iProduce. iProduce is essentially an agribusiness hub, which is focusing on agriculture and value addition. As we all know, agriculture is a very important source of employment in Nigeria, and that in Nigeria now, we have to find ways of improving our foreign revenue. We've been dependent on oil, and this has become a big problem. We must start to explore alternative ways of earning revenue for the country. Aside from that, the unemployment issues, the poverty issues, agriculture is really one of the best ways to go about solving them. So there's the issue of global value chains. There are lots of opportunities that have developed in the value chains, which allow economies to specialize in specific production structures without having to produce entire goods. So this is something that in our foundation, or iProduce, is trying to educate or enlighten people on how to participate on global value chains. There's also the issue of the inter-Africa trade, which everybody knows is very low. Inter-Africa trade is very low, even though there's a lot of demand for food within Africa. So this, of course, session is about the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement and agriculture. So we're trying to combine the two and see how we can leverage on our agricultural potential and also take advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which very soon our speaker is going to talk about. iProduce is also trying to look at the barriers to trade. Sometimes countries use technical barriers to trade in order to prevent people to accessing their markets. So that's another thing that iProduce is trying to do, to look at all the obstacles and see how we can break down those barriers so that Nigeria can start to export. And this issue of standards, which you know that in international trade, you have to comply with certain standards to be able to access markets. And this is something, again, iProduce wants to do, is essentially to explain what these standards are, and also to help them meet the standards, the specifications for export, and teach them on how to meet those standards. Again, one of our speakers is a former director of Nigerian Export Promotion, and he's an expert in this area. So he will tell you all about that. So for now, just a bit of housekeeping. Please, could you put yourselves on silent so that people can hear? I think it's all nice and quiet, so everybody's obviously doing that already. And so as far as the agenda for the day is, for the morning, what we have is, we have 2-hour session, and we've eaten into about 10 minutes of that. We have 2 speakers. The first speaker is going to speak about generally the Africa Free Trade Agreement, generally give us an overview, let us understand what it means, the implications of this to Nigeria. And then the second, that will be 1 hour. He will speak, and then there will also be a question and answer session with this speaker for the first hour. So we are expecting to have about 30 minutes of him talking, about 30 minutes of him answering questions. And then we move to part 2 of this session, and that would be with the practical aspects of export and the issue of agribusiness. And there we have our expert, Mr. Abdullahi Sidi, who's going to take over. He'll speak for about 30 minutes. Then we'll have question and answer for about 30 minutes. Please try to keep your questions concise and make sure there are actually questions, not just discussing generally random discussions, because we want to be very, very targeted. As you know, this is just a 2-hour session, so we really can't afford to wander off or veer off the topic. So on this note, I'm going to ask Mr. Francis Anatoju to please let us see you first, sir, and then ask you to take over and start your session. You have an hour in which we'd like you to speak first, and then after that, ask questions. Thank you very much again, everybody. So you're most welcome. Would like an introduction. Please introduce yourself properly. I think you're in the best position to speak about yourself before your presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Aisha. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, my co-panelists, Mr. Sidi Aliu. Pleased to share the stage with you. I'm quite. Thank you to AgriProduce for putting this together. Indeed, as you said in your intro, really. The way forward for us is export. The way forward is non-oil export. What this means is that the opportunity is for every Nigerian, because in every state of the nation, in every community, there's something that we can do better than other people. But the area I'll focus on is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. But first of all, let me introduce myself, like Aisha said. So my name is Francis Anatogo. I'm a Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Sector Matters and Secretary of the National Action Committee on the AfCFTA. So going very quickly, in terms of the presentation, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is an agreement that has been signed by 54 African countries and has been ratified by about 37 African countries. It is an agreement that seeks to create a single market for made in Africa goods and services. Why is it important? If you put it in simple terms, what it tries to mimic is, if you imagine how you trade between Kano and Lagos, or Kano and Aba, or somewhere within the country, you don't have to bother about duties. You don't have to bother about so many requirements that is associated with export trade. So it is about and the overall objective is growing our trade amongst ourselves. So in terms of the practical elements of the agreement, there's a protocol that is focused on trade in goods. There's another protocol focused on trade in services. And it also has a mechanism for dispute settlement. Which obviously, when trade happens, or when you have transactions of any kind, there are bound to be disagreements along the line. So you've got a country level mechanism for resolving those disputes, and it's similar to what we have at the WTO. There's also a protocol for free movement of persons. And as you can imagine, thanks to technology, a number of things we can do remotely, but there's still a lot that needs to happen. People need to move around. So there is also that protocol for free movement of persons. And all these are covered in the phase 1 agreement, which is largely concluded. We are at the stage of finalizing the schedules, the appendices, and so on. In a phase 2, which is at the very, just about starting at the terms of reference stage, is investment, competition, intellectual property rights, and digital economy. Now, some things to bear in mind or to note when you talk about the AfCFTA. The first thing is to know is that there's something called national treatment in the agreement. And what that means is that with the agreement, parties to this agreement will treat businesses from as other state parties the same way they would treat their own local businesses. The most favored nation rule also means that you cannot give, whatever the best arrangement you have for one party must be extended to another party, to other parties. It is also important to note that there is, if you will, the agreement is really about trade. It does not mean that the borders all come down. What it means is that there are it's a special treatment. You have preferential, you trade under preferential, you get preferential treatment. And what are these preferential treatments? One is the elimination of tariff on 90% of tariff lines. So for those of you that are already exporting, you would know about HS code. And in HS code, there are over 6,000 lines. And the AfCFTA will eliminate tariff, that's import duties, on 90% of these tariff lines. There's a development element of it, which you've got, and that is the remaining 10%. Out of the remaining 10%, 7% will be you have on the sensitive list. And these are products that countries consider to be made by infant industries or sectors that they are not quite ready to liberalize. There's also the exclusive list of 3%, the remaining 3%, which is products that a country does not want to touch, does not want to liberalize for strategic reasons, for one reason or the other. Now, the second element to note about the agreement is that it is about growing regional value chains. It is about made in Africa products. So there's something called rules of origin. And rules of origin essentially states the minimum content or local content that a product must have for it to be considered made in Africa or for AfCFTA. Now, another thing to note under these rules of origin is that it is product specific. Every product has its own rule of origin. So it's not general. I mean, some of you that already trade under ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme will be used to the general rules of origin. But here is product specific. Now, if I could just spend 1 minute on that rules of origin as well. How do you, there are four criteria for assessing rules of origin. There are products that must be made 100% in Africa. So, and some of these products like agricultural products, natural resources, and even waste. These are mostly, in their raw form, are mostly wholly obtained, 100% African content. The second criteria is substantial transformation. And under substantial transformation, you've got about three. The transformation, when a product moves from one tariff heading to another tariff heading, some of those products are deemed as qualified. For some other products, even moving from one subheading to another qualifies. And then in the third one, you need to have undergone specific processes for them to be classified as satisfying rules of origin. And the fourth one is about value of non-originating materials. So for some, it is you just cap the value of imported materials. So another thing to note is there's a accumulation principle, which, like I said, is made in Africa, not just made in Nigeria. And why is it important? It is about making sure that we trade at all levels, at raw material level, semi-manufactured products and fully manufactured products. The third element or the benefit that AfCFTA brings is harmonization of policies, regulations, and standards. And this is a major benefit. Why? Like I said, there are 54 countries that have signed, 38 countries now, and our trade amongst ourselves is low. So if you then think about what it takes you to satisfy NAFDAC, satisfy SON, get the NOTAP, and all of that, and you now have to do that for the 37 countries that have ratified the agreement, or the 54 countries, then that's a major task. So part of what AfCFTA will do is to harmonize standards and policies and regulations. And this is especially important for trade in services, obviously trade in goods too, but trade in services. The other thing is mutual recognition arrangement, which is also very important. Again, if you go to SON and get a SON certification, and we have a mutual recognition agreement with South Africa. So a South African authority will accept your product based on the certification given to you by SON or NAFDAC or NAQS. Beyond that, there's the certificates, our degrees, right? So if you're an engineer, for instance, and you're certified by current here, and we have such a similar arrangement with Egypt or other countries, then you'll have easier. It will be easier for you to practice in other African countries. This is also where the Customs Cooperation and Mutual Administrative Assistance also is a similar mutual recognition arrangements. But here, this is about customs working together near real time to make sure that, when issues come, when products come, they are attended to very promptly. And if there are issues, they can reach their counterpart in the exporting country, clarify what needs to be done, and then take their decision. And of course, when we do all of these, what we will be doing is reducing the cost of a transaction. And then that means more and more products will go up. Now, providing services and sending products to a larger market. A question that I've been asked a number of times is, why now? Nigeria is a big market. We are the target for African countries. Good. And my answer is, I'll answer in three folds. One is, the African market is huge. We import about $600 billion of products every year. And most of them are semi-manufactured or semi-finished and finished products. And this is an area where this is where the value lies. I'm talking to agricultural practitioners, so I don't need to give you examples of the value that you get if you export raw cocoa versus when you export chocolate. So moving into the more profitable segments of the value chain is what this offers. The second thing I already talked about the size of the market. The third thing to bear in mind is that in comparison, Nigeria's market, as big as we are, is really about 10%. Our export of oil and everything that we export currently is about 10% or roughly a bit less than 10% of what Africa imports. So the market is actually out there. And of course, because of the size of our market, and we are beginning to see this in fintech, in creative services and all others, because of our size, companies would establish hubs here and treat other African countries as satellites. Nigeria, in some areas, we're seeing that. In South Africa, we're already seeing that too, in Egypt and others. But this is an opportunity to actually deliberately grow and position ourselves as a hub. The second reason why this is important and very, very important to us as individuals, us as businesses, is about our wealth protection. So again, I don't need to tell you how much the currency has devalued. The currency devaluation means that your capital products, which are for your factories, for your farms and so on, which are largely imported, with every devaluation, it's harder and harder for you to access those products. But by exporting, by plugging into the regional value chain, you are trading in the currency, in foreign currency. So it becomes easier to protect your wealth. The other element is, again, now start taking advantage of the devaluation. Every devaluation makes your product more profitable in the export market. So why don't you take advantage that has already been presented by this crisis? The third one is about job creation. So the problem we have in Nigeria is problem of economic growth. We have high cost, we have a cost issue, but it's growth. We need to grow our economy. And we need to do that very fast, because at the moment, the 33% unemployment rate based on August 2021 figure is still very, very high. Now, if you then look and say, okay, all right, you buy everything that I'm saying, but then where are the opportunities? And what you can see on the right side is the size of imports by African countries. I know you're interested in agriculture. You can see sugar, we import 6.9 billion, rice 6.7 billion, rubber 5.7, oil palm, fishery, and so on. But if you also then come back to manufacturing, energy, services, you find out that the opportunities are enormous. Now, the challenges are there. The challenges have been there. The challenges, and the challenges relate to our production and productivity capacity, our infrastructure challenges, insecurity more and more these days, predatory trade practices, smuggling, illegal transshipments, and so on, regulatory constraints, and also funding. But these are challenges we must overcome as a country to solve the overall economic issue that we face today. We really don't have a choice but to tackle these. But the good thing is that companies like yours and others are already taking steps and tackling these challenges. And you will see in a number of slides down the line that I'll show you products where Nigerian businesses are already exporting in excess of $10 million of products per annum. So the challenge will then be to understand how these guys are doing this so that we can copy them and then expand our businesses as well. But if you think about this and you think about this agreement, for us to be successful with this agreement, we now need to, our implementation plan needs to focus on all these challenges. It needs to go beyond just the agreement. And at the National Action Committee, we have developed an implementation plan, a national strategy and implementation plan around 7 goals, with a vision to make every state and community in Nigeria economically viable and resilient through intra-Africa trade with AfCFTA. I started by saying that the opportunity is in every state, in every community, because if it is rice, if you take rice, for instance, right, there are states that produce rice, there are states that produce the bags for rice, there are states that produce the packaging and everything. So really, and even infrastructure, the logistics and all of that. So, and we've taken this story and opportunities down to the states to develop their, to actually pick a product and a service that they can focus on, not just to grow their capacity for domestic production and consumption, but for export. And we're talking huge export. We're talking capacity of up to 1.2 billion, because the point is that if we want to do this and be successful, and we are thinking about the post-oil world, then we're talking about replacing the $60 billion of product of revenue that we get from oil. So, and you can only do this by making your products, by being preferred suppliers, and it must be value added, because that's where the opportunity is. And of course, I mentioned capture 10% of Africa's imports from the world. That gives you $60 billion. And the goals are around production capacity, growing our workforce, essentially position our workforce in the segments where they earn premium wages in Nigeria, but also Africa. Don't forget, the market is now Africa. The third one is around engendering business-friendly environment to attract investment, of course, and boost competitiveness, and putting it in layman terms is things around automating administrative processes, providing incentives for producers to produce, bearing in mind that the cost of doing business in Nigeria is high. And reviewing existing laws, policies, and regulations to align with the AfCFTA, but also, in line with best practices to make it easier for us to produce. The fourth goal that we found is that we now must deliberately sell our products, get everyone in Nigeria to support made in Nigeria products. So eat what we produce, wear what we produce. The fifth one is about infrastructure. An infrastructure challenge in terms of power, logistics, transportation, and all of that. They're all there. But we must then look at specific infrastructure and then solve them through shared facilities, building clusters, building ecosystems, really. And then, of course, securing access to African markets. Again, it's not, we need to get our product to Africa. And so we must deliberately matchmake our businesses with our counterparts in the rest of Africa. And the seventh one is really establishing an efficient AfCFTA trade arrangement. So things around making sure that the rules of origin compliance checks are done correctly. You have the Trade Remedies Authority to check, to police the predatory trade practices, the customs cooperation agreement that I talked about, that they work as they should. So, this is how we are looking at implementing the AfCFTA. And these are very bold, these are very, very extensive goals and interventions. But we've also identified some key bold actions that we must take. And the 4 of them here: grow local demand for made in Nigeria automobiles, invest in API production to catalyze pharmaceutical value chain, commercialize research findings to improve yield and promote innovation. This is particularly important for agriculture. Leverage technology and cluster development to grow the capacity of MSMEs, reduce informal trade, and aggregate them for export. So these are this is in a nutshell how we are looking at implementing the AfCFTA at the National Action Committee. Now, getting started, I talked to you. So starting with trade in services, I know I'm talking to agriculture, but even within agriculture, there are services are very, very important. AfCFTA is liberalizing 5 sectors, service sectors: financial services, business services, communication services, transport, travel, and tourism. And there are 4 modes of supply: cross-border, consumption abroad, commercial presence, and presence of natural persons. So even our people going to live there, establishing subsidiaries there, and so on. And I already talked to you about the barriers and the mutual recognition agreements, the barriers which we need the mutual recognition agreements to solve. I've also talked to you about the elimination of import duties, 90% of tradable items. I've talked to you about the rules of origin, and in terms of how the rules of origin will work, products, companies, and their products will be subjected to a compliance assessment, and if they meet the rules of origin thresholds, they will be issued a certificate, and then they'll be given an AfCFTA number, which will then be shared with customs authorities across Africa. And every product that you send will go with that certificate of origin. If you want to understand where your products lie in terms of what has been agreed, the rules of origin that has been agreed, you can go to our website, www.ngrafcfta.gov.ng, click on resources and click on AfCFTA reference document. You will see a Word document on rules of origin. And you will have access to this presentation as well. So I don't need to cram this. Now, I will quickly end by just talking about the products. Where are the opportunities? So, and what we did here, what we call arrowhead products, we looked at the International Trade Center database, and we looked at products. Where are those products that Nigeria already export over $10 million, and Africa imports over $1 billion per annum? And what you in terms of agriculture, you have animal and vegetable fats and oil. You have rubber and articles of rubber. You have fish. You have oilseed and oleaginous fruits, grains. You have tobacco. You have preparations of cereal flour, starch, soap. Okay, and these are, you can see what Africa imports already, and you can see Nigeria's export. But we also found that there are other areas where Africa imports a lot, and we can tap into those. We are not exporting much, but we can tap into those. And you can see cereal is a big one, and which is where our rice, our sorghum, and so on. Africa imports $23 billion of cereals. Sugar and sugar confectionery, 5.68 billion. Dairy produce, birds, eggs, natural honey, and essential oils. And so at least these are the ones. So you can drill down into these and find out, what the size of the opportunity for your specific product. But indeed, these are areas of opportunities in Africa. In terms of services, again, across board in transportation, in insurance, in health services, education services, there are opportunities in Africa in all these areas. In terms of market, how do you then go about market? And what we did here, and this will be my last slide, is we looked at, at the market and we said, if you want to start, of course, we found that Nigeria market constitutes 11.8% of Africa's imports. So it's huge. So we need to, at the minimum, retain our market share. So, and this is part of why that catalyzes, making sure that we buy what we produce comes in. But then if you move to other markets, ECOWAS is a key market because we already have rules. ECOWAS is already a customs union. But if you now move to South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, and Kenya, you would have captured 50% of the market. And of course, they are all part of customs union. So you have access to other customs union countries. So by Pareto's rule, these are the countries that we see. But again, it depends on the product. So don't just take this as yeah. So, and I think I will stop here because the rest goes for creative industries and fintech and all of that, which may not be of interest to you here. And we can have a conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Francis. That was really interesting. Pity that we have such short time because there's so much information that we've had to absorb. We will be emailing the presentation to everyone, but we're also going to put it on our Google Drive and then send the link before the end of this webinar. So we're going to open up now for questions. Just before we do that, Mr. Francis, you introduced yourselves as the Secretary of Nigeria's National Action Committee on AfCFTA. Could you tell us a bit about this committee just so that we understand what you're actually trying to do? And the second thing is that when does the Africa Continental Free Trade Area open up and become operational? Those are the two things before you start. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the National Action Committee on AfCFTA was inaugurated by Mr. President on the 20th of December 2019. And the committee is chaired by the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment and co-chaired by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning. In that committee, you've got cabinet ministers, who are champions in their own area. You also have national presidents of associations and like MAN, NASIMA, NABG, and other associations. We have two subcommittees: an external engagement subcommittee and a domestic engagement. Is about taking coordinating stakeholders, private and public, to prepare Nigeria for the trade, for AfCF trade. The external engagement is around working with them to make sure that all these things, in interaction with our partners, our trade partners, actually work as we expect them to work. So our mandate is essentially to coordinate all these parties to prepare to undertake interventions to make sure that AfCFTA works. In terms of your second question of when is AfCFTA started, officially trade under AfCFTA started on the 1st of January this year. But in reality, trade is yet to start. What is holding it? There are still, the AfCFTA Secretariat is still putting finishing touches on the schedule that shows what each country plans to liberalize. It is only when you get the schedule and it's made public that people can actually then say, can I take advantage of this or not? So that schedule, the rules of origin is at, I think, about 88% complete or 90% complete. So again, conversations around rules of origin is still ongoing. So, but officially, it has started. But once these things are published, then everybody will then be able to take advantage of it. I think the last thing that I'll say is that the liberalization will not all happen 100% in one day. It will happen for us in ECOWAS. It will happen over a 10-year period. So you will notice gradual reduction in tariffs for those that have been selected for liberalization. For some countries, it's 5 years. Okay.
Thank you. Francis, if you look at the question and answer icon and press, you will see that there's some questions people have written up. I think it would be a much orderly way to have people ask questions in writing. That would make it faster. So could you have a look, please, Francis? We have,
yes.
Yes, please. And then just read, and please write your questions on the Q&A box. Thank you.
Okay. So the first question from Mr. Adewi says, how can I go about having certificate and access in doing export and import? Okay, so this is a general export and import question. So the very first thing about export, your anchor, the first port of call in terms of export is Nigerian Export Promotion Council. Obviously, if you're importing as well, you need customs, but your first port of call is Export Promotion Council. As far as AfCFTA goes, yes, all those you will still have to satisfy the normal export processes. The only thing that will not happen is that you will have to submit your product for the AfCFTA rules of origin assessment. Now, in terms of that, we are carrying out a pilot of the assessment protocol with about 25 companies before we now roll it out to the public. So that is work in progress. And once that is done, through NEPC, through customs, SON and other agencies, you will have access to how to go about this. The second question is, has AfCFTA been able to harmonize product standards from different African countries? And the answer is that it is work in progress. There's an African Standards Organization, and that is our standard organization. SON is part of that, and SON is leading in the harmonization of these standards. In terms of, there's a huge effort ongoing in harmonizing standards within ECOWAS, and also now the harmonization at African level is also gathering pace. Please, what are the grassroots sensitization programs aimed at creating awareness for the local communities? Okay. Thank you. We have been going around. We have been going around states, talking to trade associations. So we've been to about 9 states now, talking to trade associations, providing them this information so that they can share with their members. This is an ongoing process. And it will continue as we go along, especially as the rules of origin compliance process is concluded, as the schedule that I'm talked about is released. So at the moment, yes, we are doing very high level sensitization, but detailed specific sensitization will follow. We're doing some at the National Action Committee. The NEPC and other agencies are also doing the same, focused on not just AfCFTA, but on ETLS and so on. Like next week, NEPC is having a session in Sokoto, in Calabar, and one other state. So NEXIM is also having a sensitization program. So there are all sorts of sensitization programs taking this information down to the state level. The fourth one. So the fourth one says, how soon will Nigeria have to dismantle its restriction on food imports? Okay, so again, this is a very broad question. Which specific product? This will depend from an AfCFTA perspective. That will be in the schedule that I talked about once it is published. And then once it's published, we'll go through. ECOWAS is a customs union. So as ECOWAS, we will all dismantle the restrictions based on the schedule. The other question is about what is being done about being able to export our honey to the EU and US. It's quite frustrating that honey from Ghana next door is allowed in those regions, but not ours. We are in touch with NEPC, but those have now ceased. Okay. So my primary focus is Africa, but what I'll say is that this talk with NEPC should continue, but it should also get in touch with Standard Organization of Nigeria. If you need me to provide you contacts, yes, please get in touch with me through Aisha, and I'll link you up with people either within NEPC or Son. Mr. Sidi Aliu has been a veteran in this area, and he'll provide the answer. Perhaps you can go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Francis. Actually, with honey, he was the person making the question is comparing Nigeria with Ghana. The difference is that, yes, Ghana went ahead of Nigeria to get the honey certified by the EU, and that automatically allows Ghanaian honey to get exported to European Union. Before I left the office last year, NEPC has also started the jumps. They have kickstarted the process of getting Nigerian honey certified through a foundation. We were able to invite some experts from Uganda to come and did some sessions with our honey producers here in Nigeria, all in the process of getting our honey certified. As soon as that is done, there will be no restriction for Nigerian honey getting it across to Europe or most of these countries.
So Aisha, those are the questions that I have.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. There's another question on youth engagement, and I think this is really important. It's Mohammed from South Africa. Can you see the question, Francis? This will be the last one. So
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So yes. So again, these are all ongoing activities. On the first, there's a National Youth Summit happening on the first week of November, and we are participating in that. Beyond that, we are also planning a dedicated youth engagement program on AfCFTA. So again, this is a national program, and yes, and we're taking them in steps.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a bit of, just to add to what Francis has said about this engagement, I think that this is going to require both private sector and public sector to really get involved in this process, because public sector alone does not have the reach to be able to get critical mass. So one of the things that we are trying to do with iProduce is to be able to at least use this technology as a means of reaching out to young people, because the young people are very, very used to technology. So this is one of the reasons why we actually set up this this portal. We have been in talks with the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Trade and Industry and Investment, and we've made presentations on iProduce, and we're in talks to have a partnership so that we can support the ministry in trying to engage with stakeholders and especially young people, and women, so that they can understand what is going on right now. It's very important that we understand and also we prepare for what's going to happen. There are so many opportunities, but if we don't prepare ourselves, then it's going to be a very, very, it won't be useful for us. So yeah, we need to do that. But I have a question before we close, maybe Malan CD can answer. Why did Nigeria refused to sign the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement initially? What was the reason behind that? Obviously, it means that some people didn't feel it was a good idea. I don't know if it's Francis or both of you, just one minute, please. I really want to know what actually happened.
Okay. All right. So essentially, I get the crux of it is that stakeholders, first of all, wanted to get the details of the agreement before Nigeria signed, because we felt that this was something new that we didn't have. It's something that we haven't done before. That is number one. But there were also concerns in some quarters in terms of our ability to take advantage of it, given our level of competitiveness and also the high level of predatory trade practices that we know existed. I mean, we're talking about 3-4 years now. There was the time when we had a lot of rice imports coming in through Benin Republic and all of that. So stakeholders were not, some stakeholders were not, were uncomfortable, and Nigeria, then the president listened and then mandated us to undertake a nationwide sensitization and consultation exercise. So I was the secretary of that presidential committee, and we went to the 6 geopolitical zones to explain what we have and get their input. And based on that, we now conducted the impact. So we had the national consultation, and then we had the impact assessment, which was a quantitative assessment of the benefits, but also the requirements to prepare ourselves. And it was after these that the president felt comfortable to sign the agreement. And something to bear in mind is that really, one, export is the way for Nigeria, non-oil export. We've known that it is in our development plans, right? For as long as I can remember, export industrialization, right? The second thing to note is that if you then are going to export, right, you need to get preferential trade arrangements. Otherwise, you'll be trading under the WTO rule, most favored nation rules, which is like buying a standard rate. You cannot do that when other people have all signed free trade agreements. So AfCFTA is actually the first of such agreements that we need to sign and implement. And the third thing is that other countries are not waiting. If we wait to build all the roads that we need to build in Nigeria and all of that before we now start going to secure the market, by the time we are done, there will be no market there for us. So we need to do all these things in parallel. And lastly, the things that we need to do to export to Africa is largely the same thing that we need to do to export to other countries, the bigger markets of the US, the EU, the China. So really, Africa is like the foundation, the training ground for us to learn the export trade as it should be done.
Okay, Maris Didi, we're going to you're going to take over anyway. So what we'll do is you maybe would talk about this as well, why Nigeria didn't know, what your thoughts are. So I want to say a big thank you to Francis. He's just been so supportive, and we really appreciate, and well done for all the work that you've done for this. I know that there's still work to be done, and we'll hopefully be engaging with you, especially nearer the time when markets will open, and I hope that this will be an ongoing conversation. So thanks again. I'm going to now introduce Mr. Aliyu Sidi, or ask him to introduce himself actually, and then he will make his presentation on the practical aspects of exporting really, really practical deep dive into all that. So yeah, Malaliu, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Sorry, you have to unmute, please. And for those who asked for the presentation, we're just preparing the Google link and we will post it on the chat, but we're also going to email you the presentations as well. So, but we'll send a link to a Google link. Thank you, Google Drive.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll leave over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Hajia Aisha, to be part of this panel again. And I'm also glad that my good friend, Mr. Francis Anatogu, was able to do justice to the paper on AfCFTA. It's an area that needs more and more clarification and information, and I'm glad they have actually simplified the entire documents and procedures under AfCFTA. My name is Abdullahi Sidi Aliu. I was a director with the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. I've been a director there for more than 10 years before I retired last year. And ever since I retired, I decided to join the International Trade Facilitation Association. We are continuing to do trade facilitation, information dissemination, capacity building, etc. And I'm also glad to be part of the members of the advisory panel, advisory board for iProduce, courtesy of Hajia Aisha Umar. Thank you very much. Can I have my paper shared on the screen, please? Yes.
Oh, sorry. I was speaking. Here you are. But please, before you start, could you answer the question about why Nigeria didn't sign? I know Mr.
Okay, yes. Actually, Francis has given the exact position of Nigeria for delaying the signing of the agreement. There were a lot of concerns among the stakeholders, especially the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, the National Association of Nigerian Traders. They were all apprehensive about Nigeria going ahead to sign an agreement when they feel the basic things that need to be done has not been done. The fear is that they don't want a situation where Nigeria will sign an agreement. Instead of benefiting from that agreement, we may end up be on the receiving end. That is to say, every country will perfect its own plan of dumping its own products to Nigeria without Nigeria necessarily addressing those issues that need to be addressed to also enable us to export our products to the other African countries. And just as Francis said, Mr. President agreed to delay the signing of the agreement, and then he gave the marching order for the greater sensitization to be conducted. I also happen to be part of those sensitization exercises that were done in some geopolitical region. And eventually, Nigerians come to agree that yes, if we succeed in putting our house in order, Nigeria will also stand to be a huge beneficiary under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So with that, let me start by introducing my topic for discussion today. Is agribusiness and trading under the African Continental Free Trade Area. Next slide. Yeah, I have to, for emphasis, also discuss on the major objectives, even though I will just do so briefly because the presentation by Mr. Francis has delved into that. The agreement is to create a common market for about 1.2 billion people across the 55 states in the region. I'm made to understand that it's 54 now, which means there is a country that is yet to sign. Then the market also that is AfCFTA would be would be the world's largest trade area with a combined GDP of 2.5 trillion US dollars. And it will allow for free movement of goods and services, businesses, persons, and capital when fully implemented. Next. Well, the benefits of AfCFTA continues. It will just boost trade, manufacturing, and job creation across the region. And it will also create new profitable value chains across the region. How we understand this is that if you've been trading among yourselves within the ECOWAS, for instance, let's say some of our farmers have succeeded in penetrating some of the countries in the West African sub-region. Now, what AfCFTA entails is that apart from that limited enclave of ECOWAS, you have now the entire Africa as a region to contend with. That is to say, you now have a larger market to operate, and then you also have a larger competition to face. So it is important to understand that participation in AfCFTA is a two-way traffic because it's a free trade agreement. Our own goods, in as much as we want our own goods to also to be sold in other African countries, we should also expect some other goods from the part of the region to also come into Nigeria. So, but it could be raw materials that we may need to perfect our own products. It could be semi-processed products that we also, some of our manufacturers will need, or could be some intermediate products like packaging material that you need to perfect your own products. So we look at it both as a two-way traffic, exporting our goods and then importing our semi-processed or packaging materials. Next slide. Yeah, agribusiness is also important for all of us here to understand that food security, and it will guarantee food security and economic growth. Agribusiness is important for Africa's food security and economic growth. And then farmers generally will have to face a lot of challenges like climate change, pest issues, and then low access to funding and information, because you are now trying to penetrate a market with limited information about what transpires in those markets. You don't have what the requirements are for those countries. And then the climatic change in those countries, you need to also understand them before you can make a success of whatever export plan you have. But a profitable idea is to grow food here for local and domestic markets first. And then farmers can also grow using modern methods, both in cities and in urban and in rural areas. You can decide to go for organic farm inputs and methods. And all this under AfCFTA, you'll be provided, that is, our farmers will be provided with a wider market and a chance to sell their products beyond what you have been doing. And to do this, there are some important tips which I have gathered and I would like to share with you. Next slide. Next, okay. Some of the important suggestions are for our farmers to embrace modern farming techniques. Embarking on large-scale or commercial farming of crops, livestock, or fish farming for investors, it is suggested to go for soil testing, irrigation, or greenhouses. What this slide is trying to explain is that our farmers need to really upscale their own activities. We should forget about the traditional ways we've been doing things. You have seen how the African Continental Free Trade Agreement will give you opportunities in some areas where Africa imports a lot. Sugar is one of the product that is on the largest scale, on the bigger list of imports by all African countries. We also have rice, we also have rubber, oil palm, fisheries products, etc. So if you understand that these are the areas where all African countries import, now being a player within the African sub-region, you can now cash in by modernizing your activity. You can go into commercial farming of crops. Why it is important is that still agriculture has an important role to play in Africa, and so also issue on livestock or fish farming. Then you can also you can specialize in testing of soil and giving out the result. For instance, you can also decide on greenhouses where you turn out some products that will be on high demand within the within the African region. Then it is also important to know that the urbanization rate is one of the highest in the world, that is in Africa. A lot of people are moving away from the rural to urban areas. 60% of Africans will be urban dwellers by the year 2015. Now, there is need for farmers to provide the market with very good products like meat, eggs, and vegetables. These tips have been assembled based on the present trends of what transpire in the sub-region, in the African region. Then the farmers should also plan to produce right within the cities and towns nearest to the customers, that's the consumers. Or farmers can also raise a small-scale vegetable garden, keep a dairy farm, or buy and sell food in suburbs. This will give you a sort of opportunity to capture the domestic market. And from there, you will have surplus products to now start packaging for penetrating other African countries. Next slide. A continuation of the important suggestion, that is organic farming. There is generally an increasing concern for food safety and healthy living. And that is why it is important, if you are to go for vegetable, go for the organic vegetable. And if you are to produce fruit, you go for the organic fruit. This will give you premium opportunity to penetrate the markets. And then farmers are advised to focus on these products to expand their market access and increase profitability under the AfCFTA. Next slide. Then it's not only restricted to the production of fruits, vegetables, dairy products, fisheries, etc. The supply of farm inputs has also been discovered as a very lucrative business that our farmers can make money from. That is supplying inputs to local and foreign farmers. And to produce inputs, farmers can grow like animal feeds, they can breed chicks, or they can make organic manure. Any of these products will give them an opportunity for cooked sale within Africa. And then farmers need to maintain outstanding quality to remain relevant in the business. This is a very important point, because whatever you decide to produce, it is important to have your product attaining the highest level of quality. And the only way you can do that is through certification. And then farmers should also know that to start trading in farm inputs, it is advisable to obtain certificate of quality from relevant agencies. We have a lot of them in this country that will give you a certificate of certificate of quality for your product, and that will give you an opportunity to use that as a point of sale within the Africa, within the AfCFTA. Then you should also know that access to materials like seeds and animal feeds can increase your incomes. So I keep on emphasizing on this basic thing because one, under this arrangement, I know we are speaking to SMEs that are on the iProduce platform, or those that potential SMEs that want to join the iProduce and then they want to start a small scale business. These are some of the quick wins if you are really thinking of being a major player within the African Continental Free Trade Area. Next slide. Then there are also some opportunities in the provision of extension services. Information is very important, and it can help farmers to make more money if it is delivered at the right time and accurately. You can, in Africa, when I say you, I mean our own farmers can set up a lucrative business by collecting and disseminating information on quality farm inputs, high variety seeds, information up on rainfall, that the rainfall pattern of most of our countries, or even the available farming loans, the farming loans that are available for access, and then the prevailing market prices. These are all information that you can assemble in a small booklet and use that as a point of sale of your services to other African countries under the free trade agreement. And it is also advisable to use mobile application, blogs, and podcasts for your extension services, because that is what will guarantee you larger and quick access to farmers all over the world, and in particular in Africa. Next slide. Then value-added products. Why it is important to go for value-added products? To be successful in international business, it is advisable to avoid trading in raw farm commodities. Raw farm commodities, as many of you are aware, leads to a lot of post-harvest food losses as a result of the poor infrastructure we find ourselves with in Nigeria. Until recently, Nigeria has a very low investment profile in agribusiness infrastructure, leading to inadequate cold rooms. We don't have enough. We have some few cold rooms. We don't have chilled transport systems. We lack as many warehouses as possible to accommodate our agricultural produce. And then we also have very few processing centers. So these are some of the areas that our farmers can key in. Farmers are advised to invest in agro and food processing. Processed products like packaged spices, fruit juices, jams have longer shelf life during transit from one country to another, and therefore they are more preparable to engage in than raw farm commodities. The recent exercise we did on assessing application from women inclusiveness, it shows a preponderance of large number of our economic activities in food processing, which is a very good initiative. A lot of our women entrepreneurs are engaging in food processing. Some go for spices, some produce palm oils. And then if you look at the way these products are being packaged, they are excellently packaged, and they are really products that we believe can do much across Africa. All we need to do is now to concentrate on the certification angle. Yes, you have a good product. Yes, you have a good package and labeled product, but it has not been certified. That certification is a process that will now give you the final guarantee, the final license for your products to penetrate all across the African sub-region. Next slide. Well, I made my presentation very simple, and then to conclude, it is important to make the following notes: that agribusiness relates to industries, that is businesses that are engaged in farming or that produce farm inputs, i.e. farm machinery, manufacturing, seed supply, and agrochemicals. It doesn't really have to be a large agricultural company in comparison with your own that is a small SME. Independent farms engaging in any of the above activities can be classified as an agribusiness company. So farmers can key into the agribusiness either in primary agriculture, that is producing raw or processed agricultural products. They can go into agricultural manufacturing, processing, and they can also go into agricultural entrepreneur and support occupations. To be successful in agribusiness, you must think about your goals, you must get connected, you must stay tech savvy, you must stay on top of your financials, and always look for new opportunities. This is an area where I will appeal to iProduce that we should encourage our farmers to get into the e-commerce platform, which I believe iProduce is trying to set or has already set. That e-commerce platform will guarantee you easy access and will give you a level field to really present your products and get them exposed to a wider network of consumers all across Africa. So it's an area that we will emphasize on, that e-commerce is a guarantee for success under the African Continental Free Trade Area. Next slide. I thank you for your listening.
Okay, Mala Sidi, you have touched on so many critical issues and you've answered so many questions. But then again, there are a lot of more questions that we have. I have quite a few, but what we'll do is I will allow the people who have raised their hands or people who have typed to speak, to ask their questions. If you could please, first and foremost, go to the question and answer. Mala Sidi, can you see question and answer? The Q&A box. If you can see it, then could you speak to it, please? Can you hear me? Can we take down the, okay, good, it's down now, okay. So Mala Sidi, please, there are two questions on the Q&A box. Can you see them or should I read them out for you?
No, I can see them.
Okay, great, okay, please could we start?
Yeah. The first is saying that it appears that Nigeria has a good policy on promoting trading and local content. However, with the huge amount of money the present administration has invested into agriculture, we are yet to achieve food security, and the impact of produce, what you eat, is also far from reality. When do we then start exporting, and what is the way forward to achieve food security in Nigeria? Well, the issue of food security is something that can be discussed at a different level. What I mean is that you cannot eat your cake and have it at the same time. Nigeria has agreed to sign on the African Continental Free Trade Area. And as I earlier mentioned, it's either we generate products that we can trade with, or we just stay mute and allow other people to send their own product to us. So quite good. It is good. It is a good idea to promote food security because it has a lot of economic and socio-political implication on Nigeria. But at the same time, we should also promote trade. And that is why we should engage in those areas which Nigeria has both price and comparative competitiveness, comparative advantage. That will be enough to enable us participate under the African Continental Free Trade Area and generate as much foreign exchange as we need for our country. There are other products like I say value-added products. Value addition is very good because apart from the staples that we produce, those ones are mostly meant for home consumption. But the moment we started adding value to these products, we'll be in a position to satisfy both the domestic market and the export market and the export demand. And that is why I encourage people to do a lot of value-added products for target to the export field, while the staples too could be produced large enough to sustain the local demand and also free most of it as raw material to produce additional processed products for export. Then when do we then start exporting? Yeah, we can start exporting right now, as I answered, because I don't think it will be in the interest of Nigeria to wait until a certain time or a certain level to now say that yes, we will now start doing export under the African contract. Export can be, it's something that we shouldn't just wait for a particular period. All we need to do is to provide the necessary infrastructure that will create the enabling environment for export to prosper. Then the second question is, hello, can organic farming ensure food security and self-sufficiency? Also, most farmers are encouraged to commercialize their farm activities for more profitability. How affordable and effective are organic farm inputs? Thank you. Though I'm not an agri expert, but all I know is that in terms of the international market and in terms of international demand, there is a lot of difference between the local products and the organic products. The inorganic products, people are moving away from them, as I mentioned in my slides, for health issues and for food safety. A lot of interest is now moving towards organic products. So once you can guarantee your product to be organic, it fetches you, one, the premium price. And then secondly, it also guarantees sustainability in the market. In fact, presently, while discussing with the agency responsible for certifying companies in Nigeria as organic, like NISAT, which is also affiliated to ECOSAT, I was made to understand that already there are off-takers in Europe that are on standby, waiting for our produce, our farm produce, or our farm products to get that organic certification, and they are guaranteeing 100% purchase. So this will now give us the opportunity to key into organic production. The third question, you did mention that our farmers are still practicing conventional farming system rather than the modernized farming system. My question is, farming is expensive and our farmers are mostly poor. What is the government doing to promote the modernized system of farming? We keep distributing seeds and fertilizer rather than machines like tractor. Yeah, this is a very general problem, and I believe the government is already aware of this vacuum in the area of agri mechanization. And that is why some specific projects and some specific funds are being made available for agri mechanization, because we have come to agree, or we have come to understand that with mechanization, we'll be able to double more our output to be both self-sufficient in the country and also free of quite a chunk for the export revenue, which we all deserve in this country. So government is addressing the issue of agri-mechanization. And then, just like the host mentioned in her opening remarks, that most of this collaboration should be between government and the private sector. A lot of private sectors are being encouraged to go into mechanized farming. And you discover that there are funding made available both in the, I believe, Bank of Agriculture, BOI, Bank of Industry, and even Nexim, that encourages people to go mechanized, because it is through the large-scale production that Nigeria can reap the benefit of economic subscale. Thank you. See the questions. Are there any funds designated for agripreneurs to scale up their operations to take advantage of the African market? Yes, there are a lot of those funding recently. And I must confess that it has been a very unprecedented policy by the present government, in terms of channeling a lot of resources, funds for agriculture and agribusiness. I don't have a list of the various programs that have been put in place for farmers, but if this Q&A could be extended, I'll be able to tell you that yes, in starting from the Anko growers, starting from agricultural revolution program, they are receiving the NADA, agriculture, the agency that was created during the President Ibrahim Babangida, which has been now reintroduced to create more land that will be put into farming. So the incentive is also there. After the land has been created, then the incentive, that is the funding, will also be available for people to now go into large-scale production. Then the other one is that the speaker earlier mentioned that he will give example of some businesses that are already exporting up to $10 million. My internet connection has been on and off. I may have missed that part of the presentation. Can you please ask him to mention a few examples, which product segment? Okay, I think he's referring to the presentation by Mr. Francis and Natugu. And he didn't say that he's going to give you example. He actually displayed that on some part of the statistics during his presentation, for you to know that what the implementation committee did was to now assess those products that have a large import bill for Africa, and then link them up with those products where Nigeria export up to $10 million of that product. so as to see that, yes, if we can upscale our own efforts, we can ramp up our own production of those products, we could be able to now fill the gap, the import gap. Instead of African countries importing these things from India, Asia, and some other countries, we will have at home the platform to now respond to the demand of the African consumers. But I will allow, since Francis is still on standby, he should be able to also answer that question. Thank you.
I'm afraid Mr. Francis is not, it has left, but
okay.
I do know, as iProduce has been engaging with some of these government institutions, some financial institutions, both private sector, public sector. The Minister of Trade and Investment announced about 2 months ago that there was an MSME fund, a $1 billion syndicated term loan through the Bank of Industry. And this fund is for young entrepreneurs, startups. So we plan to have a session, a webinar with the Bank of Industry and commercial banks who also have access to some soft loans, not through the normal window. So we are planning to have a session on that, and hopefully in the next, our next session will focus on how to access finance for agribusinesses. So that's very important. Then the other thing is that generally commercial banks are trying to go into non-oil export as well. And there are also some government intervention funds that are channeled through the regular commercial banks. So you may want to talk to your commercial banks. We're partnering with Sterling Bank, and we're partnering with Jais Bank as well. So they also have told us that there's some funds that are available. Aside from that, there's also training that is going to be very, very useful, I hope, to our members. We're going to be training just like we are now, but training on standards. This is so important. Mala Sidi has told us about the issue of having to certify and understand the standards and specifications before you embark on export. So that's another area that we hope to also do some training on. We're going to also start some physical training, because I think Ministry of Trade and Investment, who we're partnering with soon, will probably like us to work closely with them in order to have some physical training as well, because this is something that is so important that may require a whole day. So we're going to try as much as possible to have as many of these as possible. Mala Sidi, I don't know, have you finished all the questions?
I have finished all.
Okay, good.
But I would like you to also indicate what efforts iProduce is doing to admit some of the companies that have very good products to be on an e-commerce platform, which is automatically launching them into the wider world. Yeah. And all they need to do is to now solidify the logistics, because if there is a demand, for instance, from Morocco or from Algeria, what logistics will that company put in place to make sure that the product gets to the consumer at the right time? Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for that question. Now, so basically our website, we have different features. We have the training, we have the resources section, and the one of them is a deal room. Now, this deal room essentially is to take us to the next stage, if you like. The idea is to generate interest in agribusiness first, try and get people to even understand where they want to position themselves. Then the last stage is to introduce them to markets and also to buyers or technical partners. So I know that one of the good things about the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, once it becomes operational, there's a very good chance that many foreign companies would want to come and take advantage of the free movement of goods and services in Africa. And as you know, in Africa, Nigeria is the largest market. So their first port or their preferred location, if Nigeria can sort out, especially its security problems, Nigeria would become the the first choice. Unfortunately, now Ghana is the first destination in West Africa. It's the second largest economy in West Africa after Nigeria, and it has security and there's reasonably okay infrastructure. Now, Nigeria has to sort out those two things, the security and infrastructure. Infrastructure including power, of course, road networks, etc. Now, if we can do that in the next 2-3 years, then I know that Nigeria would be the preferred destination for investments. That is, foreign investors coming to set up and using Nigeria as a hub. I know somebody, I think both Francis and CD mentioned that Nigeria is probably the most suitable place as a hub. Now, this is where we as Nigerians have to be prepared. If we can get ourselves, package our companies, our local entrepreneurs to become the local partners to these foreign companies coming in. Many many international companies would probably want to partner with a local company whereby, they remain technical partners. The local company is there on the on ground to coordinate business and everything. So this is one of the things that the iProduce Deal Room will be doing. We're already talking to a few companies, overseas companies who are interested in doing business in Nigeria. And we hope to do due diligence on our members, which is why we urge people to register. And when you go to the deal room, you have to have information about your identity. We have to know your NIN because we need to do some due diligence so that whoever we're introducing you to knows that you are traceable. So this is what we're trying to do, Mala Abdullahi. There's a lot of work to be done, I know, but they say a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. So we're trying to at least gather the interest first, and then from there go to the next stage. And I hope, again, thankfully you are an advisory board member of iProduce. So Malan Sidi kindly agreed to become an advisory board member. So because of that, we have access to him all the time. And we hope that as we go along, we'll call on him at any time to be able to come and talk to topics. What we're going to try and do is that we will watch things as they unfold and try to speak to whatever issues are arising. So as we go along, whatever we find is going on in the business environment or in the African or international that affects Nigeria, we'll try and have sessions and bring speakers who can talk to us about these things. So there's some more questions I see. If you can please have a look. Okay, there's a question that says, Hajia Aisha, what is iProduce doing to reach all states of the Federation? And what effort is iProduce putting in place to transform the minds of the youth towards seeing opportunities in agriculture? Thank you very much, Muhammad Mahmoud. We definitely, our main target are the youths. Incidentally, there is an organization called IAP, Young Arewa Entrepreneurs. And these are young people, young men and women who have come together. They're all engaged in agribusiness. We're working with them. They have a membership of almost 2,000 or so young people from all over Arewa. We're working with them in order to try and get them to focus on agribusiness. As we all know, the young people are facing unemployment. So this is something very, very important. Then we are also, again, working with other organizations and cooperatives who have expressed interest to work with us. We are for the whole of Nigeria. It's not just Arewa. The Arewa Young Agri Entrepreneurs just happen to organize themselves. We're also doing a lot in Borno because Borno is my constituency. So we will try and also support them. But any state that opens their doors to us, we're ready to go in there and try and support. This is the purpose of iProduce. It's a non-profit, so as you can see, the training is free, and all that we do, accessing the website and everything is free. So please try and write to us, email us, whatever you want. The other thing is the question is an anonymous person says, I'm a new farmer who doesn't have any form of training. I'd like to join any poultry and cattle farming training you are planning. How do I join? Please just register as an iProduce member. And livestock, iProduce has 4 areas of focus. One is livestock, and livestock obviously involves not just cattle farming, it involves poultry, there's sheep and birds generally. So poultry is coming up very, very soon. I think it's going to be the next, not the next one is finance, the next after that is poultry. So we're going to come up with poultry very, very soon. As far as cattle farm is concerned, yes, we are also planning that. You know, livestock is huge. There's the value chain, the leather is there. We had a fantastic session on dairy, actually, which was really, really good. We have the links, a YouTube link on all our trainings. So if you've missed any of the trainings, just go to our website and you'll find the training. So if you're into cattle farming, perhaps you should look at the session that we had on dairy. That was a very, very good one. So I don't know if Madam CD, you will say some more. We have 15 minutes to go. There are any more questions? Otherwise, Madam CD will continue to answer more questions. And if there are any more, please put them up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm just stand by to see if there are more questions that need to be answered from my own presentation.
Okay, I can see somebody, not on the Q&A, somebody called Hafiz Mohammed said, good morning all. Please, are you aware of the special agro-processing zone to be financed by the ADB, Islamic Development Bank, and IFAD? Are you aware? I'm aware that there are talks and they've selected some states that are interested in the agro-processing zones. So there are industrial centers which are going to house, provide infrastructure for the agriculture businesses, and also host them and give them a good operating or business environment. So I think I will check it up, but I know that it's going to be, I think, in each zone or something like that.
Yeah, by way of additional information, those are special agricultural economic zones. There are some of the things that Nigeria has been waiting for a long time, and it's like we really delayed in setting up such a special agricultural zone. What it means is that already, if you look at the entire 6 geopolitical regions in Nigeria, each of the regions specializes in producing one particular product or the other. So if you now create a special economic zone, it's just to create the necessary infrastructures which I mentioned in my presentation, an enclave, a warehouse, good roads, good network of roads, and then a very good evacuation center. Because like if you take Plateau State, for instance, when we are talking of fresh fruits and vegetables, you need to provide the way to link up with the farmers to evacuate the products from the farms using a cold refrigerated barn, and then also using a warehouse facility that has those cold rooms, because these are things that need to be kept fresh. And then if you look at Plateau, presently, I don't know whether there is an air link between Plateau, Jos, with the rest of the country. If you are to evacuate these things to let's say Europe, for instance, if you are talking of horticultural products, definitely there should be a synergy between the how you can now link the warehouse in Plateau or the warehouses in Plateau to a point of exit. So once the government approved this kind of scheme, all these things will be addressed, and you discover that yes, Nigeria is not a major player presently in the area of horticultural export, even though we have all the advantages. Kenya is dominating, but we also discover that the period that Kenya will be off season provide a very good opportunity for Nigeria, because Nigeria will be on season. And if you look at the proximity from Europe, Nigeria is closer to Europe than Kenya when you talk of air link. So despite all these advantages, we have not really exploited the potentials. So these special agricultural zones are a welcome development. Kano in the Wano market is hosting one of the largest grains market in West Africa, if not even in Africa. But if you go to the no market, they are left with very poor infrastructure. The trucks are still looking very old and dilapidated. But still, there is a thriving business of evacuating grains all across the West African sub-region to Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, etc. So if that particular zone, the Dawano market or somewhere close, is now created and made a special economic zone with all the necessary things that is needed to facilitate such export is provided, you discover that all these are things that will now be a plus for the country. Thank you.
Okay. So that is so important. What you said, I think that these things have been in the pipeline. Successive governments come up with plans to have industrial agric zones and so on and so forth, but somehow we just haven't been able to pull it off. I think now that the writing is on the wall, we cannot rely on oil anymore. I think now that perhaps government is going to execute these of kind of zones. Incidentally, the states that are the first 6 or 7 states that are going to participate in phase 1 of the ADB zone models, industrial zones, are Lagos, Kaduna, Kwara, Kano, Imo, Cross River, Ogun, and Oyo. These are the states. Plateau is not in it. I'm surprised Benue isn't. I know the Plateau and Benue, those are supposedly the bed baskets of Nigeria, but they're not amongst them, perhaps because it has to do with ADB, and ADB, I think they're loans. So maybe the state has to express an interest in borrowing. Not every state wants to borrow. So maybe that is why those states like Benue and Plateau have not been involved. So there's another question that I saw, which is here. Okay, it says to what extent are the subnationals involved in Nigeria's drive to maximally benefit from AfCFTA, considering the diverse areas of comparative advantages across the subnationals? So maybe Malan Sidi could answer that. To what extent are the subnationals, these states, to what extent are they engaged? I can talk about Borno states. I would let you speak first, and I'll speak about Borno.
It's okay. I think with the greater level of sensitization now, a lot of states are now trying to key into generating the kind of critical mass in terms of production and processing to be relevant under the African Continental Free Trade. If you remember, a similar question was thrown to Francis, which he answered before leaving the platform, that the sensitization campaign cannot be said to be exhaustive. So they will continue and they will sustain that. And then they have also tried to bring in the state actors to be versatile in identifying, and this is done with the collaboration of agencies like Nigeria Export Promotion Council, which is floating the One State, One Product initiative, that every state should still identify a product that can be developed for export. And I think the effort is ongoing and it will be sustained. Then the other issue of, before allowing Hajia to respond to that, there is this issue of agriculture in Nigeria is mostly shouldered by the federal government alone. Many of our state governors do very little to promote agriculture. And I think that is why we are where we are on agriculture. Small farmers are just suffering. Well, I think this is not a question, but he's making his own suggestion and observation that it's only the federal government that is making efforts to make agriculture a thriving business through all the support, the funding and everything that is being done to the sector. Well, I think as a federation, the state governments need to now key into what the federal government is doing, you understand? And that most of these funds that are being made available, they are not directed as allocation to the states, no, but they are allocation to entrepreneurs. So states should actually identify the entrepreneurs in their own states, in their own enclaves and encourage them to also key into the federal government initiative. Over to you, Hajar.
Okay, thank you. See, the thing I'm concerned about is that the dependence on, before I talk to you about what Borno is trying to do, I feel that the dependence on public sector is one of the big problems that we have in Nigeria. It is something, I guess, as part of what they call the Dutch disease, where you've been spoon-fed for all these years and we have not been able to take care of ourselves. You see, private sector is key to implement, to buying in and to doing the work. Government absolutely cannot do all. In fact, the only thing government can do is to provide an enabling environment, like signing the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, opening up the market. That is opening up or providing Nigerians with a huge markets in which to play in. These are things the government can do, but government cannot do the rest. So it's private sector that has to do it. And it's I don't know if you call it a vicious circle, because in order to create employment, you have to start business. In order to have business, you need capital. In order to get capital, you have to have some business to show that you've done. So government is also intervening. I'm not part of government, so I'm not making excuses for government, but I do know that government is providing a lot of funds. The Anchor Borrower program is a very good example. What happened with Anchor Borrower is almost unprecedented for people to be able to get access to inputs, farmers. But guess what happened? Nigeria being who we are, a lot of the Anchor Borrower money was actually siphoned. And now a lot of the loans have not been paid back. So the central bank has given out these loans, and the idea is for you to use them to produce and then sell your produce and pay back the money. Many aren't paying back. So you see, we are not also helping matters. So that's the role that we as ordinary business people have to really try to overcome. Then the second thing is that the second thing is that Borno states. I don't know if people are aware that Borno now gradually peace is being restored, and Borno happens to be a hub between. It's a gateway to the African markets. We have about Borno services about 5 or 6 African countries in terms of supplying goods to them. If you go to Maiduguri, there's a route from Maiduguri to Bama. From Bama, there's a town called Banki. From Bama to Banki, when you go to Banki, it's the border of Cameroon and Nigeria. And that Banki market is the gateway where Nigerian goods transported all the way from Lagos, from Oyo, from Kaduna, Kano. Every day you have hundreds of trucks passing, trailers, taking goods to Maiduguri, to Bama, to Banki, and out to Cameroon, Chad, South Sudan, even as far as Libya. So Borno is located very, very strategically. And this trade has been going on as a trans-Saharan trade. It kind of never stops. It's a trade route that has been in existence for hundreds of years. So now what Borno State is trying to do is to, border town of Banki, there's an initiative of the NEBZA, as Nigerian Export Free Processing Zone. NEBZA is working with Borno State for them to set up a border market and export-free zone in Banki. And an export-free zone basically means that you have infrastructure, just like Malam Abdullah Sidi said, you have the infrastructure, warehousing, where you can go and produce in that area, tax-free, and then you also have logistics to be able to export. Now, talking about logistics and all this, you see, when we talk about the value chain, I think people are still thinking in terms of being producers, being processors, being transporters, being packagers, and exporters. When you talk about the value chain, the way the global markets are working now is that you can produce an aeroplane, for example. Boeing has different parts being produced by in different countries. So what you do is you're bringing together all the various parts and putting them together. Now, for Nigeria, for example, we have excellent leather. So Nigeria could decide they're going to become producers or suppliers for leather seats, the leather that you use in BMWs or in aeroplanes, in all these cars that have leather. Nigeria could say, this is where we're going to target. And you have to go down granular to the last, to the actual buyer. So you cannot say, I'm going to export generally, just pray that your things get what you have to get that supplier, the buyer over there, you have to get their standards. So if they say they want sheep leather or cow leather or goat leather, the BMW or Rolls-Royce or Bentley or whoever, Ferrari, all of them, for example, they use cars leather in their seats, and then they give you specifications. You find out where they buy their leather for, or who it is that designs the leather. Say, I'm going to provide specifically for this person. You get the specifications and you do. So this is actually what value chain, integration into value chains. So you may not even be the one doing the cattle rearing and fattening and whatever. What you own is just to make sure that you get the leather across to the buyer. Then there's also storage. You know, the storage is huge. We do not have enough storage to be able to transport, especially perishables. That's an opportunity. You can decide you're just going to play in that space where all you do is just get trucks. You can get money from Bank of Industry, for example, get your fleet of trucks and then be a transporter, logistics. Just like we have the delivery that is a thriving business now. You know, the riders, where they just deliver from within town. You can be a deliverer, have your websites, and what you do is to deliver from farm produce, from farm to market, etc. You could just be into the storage where you have a warehouse and a refrigerated warehouse, maybe with a generator, making sure that things are fresh. So farmers can come and especially with the many countries going vegetarian and vegan, you can have just organic, have a storage space and evacuate it, get into an agreement with a logistics international cargo company. DHL told us that they come to Nigeria with a full cargo, they leave empty. DHL have told us that they have tried to get Nigerians to take advantage of export air freights, but Nigerians are not interested. And as a matter of fact, the DHL, the hub where the collection point for produce is Lagos. Can you imagine that producers from different countries in West Africa fly their goods, or they transport their goods to Lagos, to the DHL flights, cargo, and they go. So other countries are actually sending things to Lagos for export, but they are not, but Nigeria is not doing that. So these are things that we need to look into. There are a lot of opportunities. I know we still need to research and learn a lot. So hopefully we'll try and do our best, I produce, to give as much information and everything. So yes, Ms. Yemisi Wada said many people were duped during the Anchor Borough program. I'm so sorry to hear that. I know that things didn't go as they were supposed to. So it's 12:59. We have 1 minute. I'm going to hand over to Mala Aliut for anything else, and then we have to close. Thank you. Mala Aliut, over to you if you have anything. Otherwise, we'll close.
No, I don't have any other thing to say. Just to say thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to make the presentation. And please do call on us again to meet with people to discuss and share this information. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you joining us. And we look forward to having another session. We will communicate with you now that we have your email addresses. We'll communicate with you on the next session. And please send us emails and register as iProduce members. Go into the deal room as well. It's going to be very, very soon. We're going to activate the deal room and you'll be hearing from us. So thank you and have a lovely weekend.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.